We're preparing for a big day aboard Jibsea. Haul-outs are always a mix of anticipation and discovery. They're the only chance to really see what's going on below the waterline. Places we can't normally inspect or service while afloat, and more often than not, they reveal new projects we didn't plan for. First on the list is removing the furling unit to prep the rig for the yard.
What are you doing, buddy?
It's always a bit nerve-wracking watching your home being lifted out of the water, especially with tight clearances. The yard's travel lift was on the smaller side. With the draft of 6.5 feet, we had to be extra careful to ensure clearance as she was lifted. Then there was the inner stay. It came close to hitting the top of the lift, but with some adjustments and patience, she was lifted safely out of the water. This haul-out is especially important as we get Jibsea ready for new challenges. We'll be sailing to different climates, including higher latitudes where the conditions will demand even more from the boat, and from us. We decided to haul out while we were still at the marina here just because it's a great location. We can get everything that we need. And we're going to do a bottom job. And a couple other things. Transducer, got to replace that.
Yeah. Luckily,
we just ordered one because in the midst of scraping all of the barnacles off, Travis sheared off the outer housing of the transducer.
Whoops.
Oh, it has a barrier coat. You can kind of tell actually right up here is
Probably 2 mils thick. So that's all going to depend. We're going to start sanding down and see where we get to because we wanted to do a full job like barrier coat and everything. So if it already has barrier coat, then we might not have to do as many layers. We'll just get all the paint off and then reapply a nice new barrier coat, maybe 1 or 2. We shouldn't have to go straight down to the hull. I don't think. I'll double check the total boat.
That's the ablative antifoul. That's the barrier coat. And then that's the raw aluminum. After being cradled by water for so long, it feels unnatural to see Jibsea over land. When the weight of the boat shifts from the slings to the stands, we're just hoping everything gets set up perfectly. Once she's firmly in place, it's a huge relief, and the real work can begin. We're going to be starting off by sanding. Travis has already gotten started. We're just going to take it down to the barrier coat, and then I think that's all we're going to probably get done today. It was a little of a late start in the morning because the boat was dripping wet with condensation from overnight. It was really dewy last night or into the morning. You probably noticed that we're sitting up pretty high on the stands, and that wasn't by accident. We specifically asked for a little extra height. When it comes to sanding the bottom of the hull, having more space to work makes a huge difference. Sanding is hard enough, so we'll save our backs the extra strain. We just finished sanding. Our initial plan was to put barrier coat, like 3 or 4 coats on the entire boat, which meant sanding down the hull all the way down to the original barrier coat, getting rid of all of the antifoul. But upon looking at it,
It's looking pretty good actually for our sake, meaning I don't think we need to take this all the way down to barrier coat to then reapply. I just don't think it's needed. We're going to do it on the rudder and the keel. We're going to take this all down and then reapply barrier coat to that, because that stuff sees a lot more action through the water, especially on the leading edges. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do, just reapply that, and then we're gonna sand everything down again just to give it a tooth, and then reapply, because you can apply a blade over a blade of paint. So I think that's what we're gonna do.
and then it won't take us 1,000 years.
And then it shouldn't take us 1,000 years, yeah, to take this all the way down to barrier coat, because I know I've already tried in certain areas and it is thick.
We did haul out the boat before in Panama, but it was a super, super quick haul out, so we never got a chance to really inspect the condition of the bottom paint. That's not what our focus was.
No point doing that much extra work. Like, we'd be here for weeks taking it down, and there's just no need. We want to get out cruising, so we decided it's good to reapply, and we're gonna apply a ton of layers of paint.
We took down the keel and the rudder down a lot more than the rest of the boat, exposing some parts of raw aluminum. So on those parts, we will put some barrier coat on it,
Yeah.
but the majority of the hull up to the water line, we just toothed it and we'll just put antifoul on it directly.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good plan.
My hands are already tingly and so sore, so I don't think I can take any more sanding. Like last night after the first night, they were still tingling and numb, and today it's shifted to a soreness where I could feel it in my fingers, my forearms, my shoulders. I feel like I got a really good workout.
That's a good workout, that's for sure. Got a couple other little things to meddle with. The anodes and
Transducer, it didn't work anyway.
so we got to replace that, which is going to come in the next day or so. And then hopefully we'll be back in the water in no time and get out sailing. I just want to go sailing.
Pretty much ready to go. We've sanded down everything the best that we could. We degreased it, did a little surface prep with this Total Boat Dewaxer surface prep. We're going to be applying the Total Boat aluminum boat barrier coat, which is a 3-to-1 ratio epoxy. I think in the climate that we're in right now, it's about 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. We will probably have to wait about 3 hours for the epoxy to cure before we can put on the next layer. So it'll probably be a whole day just dealing with the barrier coat before we can start applying any antifoul. All right, so our concern in all of this is because we did not get the boat sandblasted, obviously, and we've got welds that we've learned on the aluminum boat are very hard to reach with the sander. So we did our best to grind it out. Like Travis just used a wire brush grinder. Is that right?
I've used a Dremel to get in a bit of a wire brush. I know you're not supposed to use a wire brush because it's a stainless steel wire brush, but I've also pressure washed it, cleaned it, and yeah.
Yeah, so we're just hoping that the barrier coat will adhere to the spots where we might have left some antifoul behind, because we obviously don't want the barrier coat to fall off and then the antifoul to fall off. But we're not sandblasting the rest of the boat because this is like decent. We were able to tooth it. But yeah, I guess we'll see. We just really hope that it'll come out how it's supposed to.
Yeah, we were told that it should be fine.
Yeah.
A little bit of a paint antifoul that's still on there, it should be fine. Today is paint day. Yeehaw. We also have a super good staircase. Look at that. Such a huge difference when you have a big staircase to get on and off the boat.
I feel like a snowman. You need to cover up more, I feel. So we're going to be using Total Boat's Alumapaint Antifoul, which is copper free for metal hulls.
Yeah, typically to stay extra safe, because it's an aluminum hull, you want to keep away from anything copper because they'll react to each other. So obviously any bottom paint with copper in it could potentially oxidize the boat quicker, and you don't want that. This is a copper-free paint. It'll be interesting to see how it holds up with all the different climates that we're going to be heading to. We're going to slap as much of this stuff as we can on the boat. We got 6 gallons, so we're going to try to get
All the way up, buddy.
Thanks, Mom. No, it's too hot. I'm not even getting it right.
It's not that hot. You don't even have goggles. We only got one set. But
What are you doing?
I'm PPEing you.
So now that we're ready, let's go paint.
Challenging part is that the hull isn't completely flat, so as the roller goes over it, you get these little indents that stay bare. First coat will be easy, but each successive coat we'll just have to make sure that we're actually applying another layer over the previous. We've got a little friendly competition going on. I worked mainly on the starboard side while Travis mainly tackled the port, so we're going to see over time whose side will last longer. Drink it all. While we've been on the hard, I've been keeping a water bottle down there with us at all times to make sure that we're staying hydrated. And what we've been drinking in our bottle is Element, sponsor of this week's video, and an electrolyte drink mix. It's 0 sugar and it doesn't have any of the dodgy ingredients that popular sports drinks or electrolyte drinks have. An electrolyte imbalance or deficiency can cause headaches, cramps, fatigue, weakness, brain fog, pretty much all the things that we do not want to have while we're trying to work as fast as we can on Jibsea so that splash day comes sooner than later. Element's got a ton of different flavors. My favorite is raspberry. I like that you can adjust how salty you're feeling for the day. We personally find 1 stick with 1 liter of water works perfectly. And while drinking Element, we've noticed that our energy and our focus levels have remained high despite having much longer days, working day in and day out. For a limited time, Element's chocolate medley is available with chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. This trio is designed to be enjoyed hot or swirled into your favorite recipes. It makes for a tasty way to heat up your winter, especially as the days are getting colder, or works as a great gift this holiday season. So get it while it's hot, and it's available for a limited time. We've got a special offer for you guys as well. For both new and returning customers, you get a free Element sample pack with every purchase that's made using our link, drinklmnt.com/sailingjibsea. If you give Element a try and you don't like it, it's risk-free. You can give it to a salty friend and Element will give you your money back, no questions asked. That's drinklmnt.com/sailingjibsea to get a free sample pack with every purchase. After 5 days of sanding and painting, we got the last layer of antifoul on yesterday evening. We did a total of 6 layers and we saved the last gallon for touch-ups for the parts that are bare, like where the stands were sitting on the hull, under the keel, spots like that. So today, day 6, we've hauled back up into the slings so we can get access to underneath those spots that were covered. We're going to be applying the same thing all over again onto those spots. So we're going to be sanding, adding barrier coat, 6 layers of antifoul to those spots, and then sit in the slings for, I don't know, maybe a couple of days till we get all that done and dry. There's an area on the back of the keel that we'll have to work on. A little bit of an issue that we discovered after hauling out and taking all the paint off. We made a couple of discoveries. One issue being this area here at the back side of the keel. We noticed that once the boat was hauled and the rest of it was dry, this area kept leaking.
Whoever fixed this, whatever happened here at some point, the welds weren't perfect and it had a pinhole in the weld, and that's where we seen the water coming from. So that's why I drilled the hole, and then yeah, just a bunch of water came out.
Just put a shot back to it for a couple of days trying to dry it out, but it just kept on coming. You tasted it.
Yeah, it was fresh water.
We thought that it could have been a number of possibilities. The first one being a couple of days prior to hauling out, we inadvertently flooded the boat when we were filling it with fresh water. It all went into the shower.
We horribly flooded the boat. I vented our freshwater tanks into the shower, so when we overflowed the tanks, it drains into the shower because there's just no overboard through haul yet. I might end up doing that because of what we just did.
But the water came up, like it filled the bilge. It was coming out of the floorboards. It was a bad flood. So we thought maybe it was just gravity doing its thing, trickling down, because when we were hauled out, we were sitting kind of butt heavy.
We can't access this part of the keel at all. So obviously I'm pretty sure water just made its way back and sat down in here.
Or we thought it could have been maybe a crack in our gray water tank, which sits just forward of the keel, kind of
wedge,
Well, that was the
like in between it.
that was the first initial. I was like, oh man, our gray water tank's leaking. But I thought our gray water tank was here until I realized it's way forward. And then I opened up the gray water tank, pulled the hose. It reeked, the smell.
And that doesn't smell.
And this doesn't have a single smell to it, and it tastes like fresh, not even soapy that a gray water would have. So pretty sure it's just from us flooding the boat, but that was like obviously one problem to discovering this problem.
Yeah, because once we took all the paint and the barrier coat that was on here, we obviously discovered that this was a problem area that
This has been previously fixed of some sort.
We're just trying to remedy it as best we can.
Yeah, you could open this up and potentially be something else going on in here. Maybe, I don't know. So anyways, I used an aluminum epoxy weld and just kind of refilled my holes and just smeared it over this whole area in case there was any little pinholes. We never had salt water in the boat anywhere, even in the bilge, and that's like well below the water line. So no salt water came through that little tiny pinhole, but whatever water was sitting in here from before wasn't allowing anything to come in or out. So I don't know, it's kind of a mystery, but yeah, we're just epoxying it, and then we're gonna do a ton of barrier coat layers over this to seal it even better. And
Hopefully the next haul out we don't see it getting worse, or what?
yeah, so yeah. If we don't notice any crazy problems, then I think it'll be okay.
Want to tell them about the other dumb bummer discovery?
Oh yeah, and then take you on over here. Can't really see it at the moment, but so the boat has these plates welded on, and they're meant for the anodes. There's pre-existing screwed holes, and whoever put the new anodes on here went, oh, it's either one was they stripped it out or something, and they couldn't get the screws back in the other hole, so all they did is drilled straight through this plate, straight through the hull, slapped some sealant on it, that's it. So now I have a hole here, I had a hole here that screw went straight through and went right inside of the boat. And I'm like, ah. So I cleaned them out. There's a foam backing, like our boat's insulated, so made a little cavity inside there, and then I just pumped it full of epoxy, the aluminum epoxy stuff. And then I'm just gonna re-tap that hole, and I'm gonna have it very shallow so then it stops if there is any water intrusion past those bolts. And then if you've seen this big chunk, your guess is as good as ours. Obviously had a previous fix. The keel is full of lead and tar, so I'm guessing that maybe the lead was touching the outside aluminum and then might have corroded it, so they had to replace this piece. I'm guessing, huge mystery, but welds are absolutely shitty. Whoever welded it up.
Well, we also slapped a whole bunch of
Then we
epoxy on it.
globbed a bunch of paint on it to, make it look even prettier. But yeah, there's a couple mysteries with the boat, but I still love it.
The temperatures dropped a lot the past couple of days, so it is quite chilly, which makes wearing these suits quite comfortable because they're keeping us warm. Normally these things suck because you just get so hot you can't breathe underneath them, but it's pretty chilly here now in Virginia in November. I think we're sitting at 15 to 20 degrees, so yeah, it's perfect weather to be working on the boat outside, which is nice, and we are almost done. It's really hard to remember where all of the stands were. I think there were about 13 patches that we've got to touch up. So the way we just marked it was with a little piece of painter's tape, so we know where we're putting each layer. All right, so we got the fix done. Seems to be looking good. We ended up putting some of the antifoul onto our prop as well.
We got our new transducer installed, but I also plumbed in through hull for our sink. Our sink has two ways of draining. A very high drain goes over the port side, but it's pretty much 2 inches below the sink, so it doesn't drain a lot. And then if we're on a port tack, you can't drain it out. So at the main drain actually drained into the gray water bilge.
Which is gross.
I never liked it. I didn't want that. So we had an old transducer here. It was like one of those big transducers. So I just put a through hull there because there's already a hole in the bottom of the boat. So now we'll be able to plumb our sink straight into here. It's the center of the boat, so no matter what tack we're on, it'll still drain.
And now it's time for us to go back in the water. We're back in.
Well, as you can see, we're back in the water and it's time to install our furling unit again. It's a little windy. I probably won't get the sail up today just because it's howling like 20 plus knots, which seems like every other day. Get a lot of northeasters coming out of here up in Virginia this time of year, but that's all right. I'll just wait for a nice calm morning and then just fire it up. But I'm really happy with everything we got done on the hard. Massive thanks to Total Boat for helping us out with the bottom job. Big thanks. Love their products and I can't wait to test them and see how long we get out of this bottom paint, because it's copper free, meant for aluminum hull. It's also really cool because you can put that to your prop shaft and your propeller because it's copper free. So yeah, so let's get this installed. And I definitely polished all of this stuff up. This did not shine before, so I polished that up. That was like more of a dingy, as you can kind of see inside. That's what it looked like. So I gave it a nice polish. Polished these little things up that go inside here. What I noticed before is with the Pro Furler stuff, you got aluminum and stainless parts all together. And I've kind of read and heard about them seizing quite often because of the similar metals. And this didn't have any Lanacoat or Tef gel in there, so I'm gonna put back everything that I've taken off. I've polished it and then I'm gonna Tef gel it, so it should be perfect. So watch me stare at this for a bit, try to figure out how I took it apart. Two ways of doing it. I could either run it this way, which I think works. How it was the first time, this way. Now I have a bit more movement that way without as much strain on that, but kind of nice to see the big polished stainless. Doesn't have much movement that way, but the pivot point is in this point. I just don't want to put too much load on this. Decisions, and then it looks sleeker up this way, and then you see that sideways. I might install it, give it a wiggle and see how it works to see if it puts too much side load on that bottom pin. It shouldn't, because the pivot point's up top. Have it like this, which it has more play and the pressure point isn't on this part, so this makes more sense. Otherwise you might just blow the welds right here. It's not as pretty because now it's this way. Guess that's the way it's got to be. Don't remember it being this tight. Maybe it is. Doesn't help, it's a little cold. Joints and muscles hurt. Almost there, a couple more turns. Got her back to original. It's getting cold up here. Time to head to the Caribbean and enjoy some sun. Well, not sure if you caught that, but I just caught that. I had to take it apart to put the cotter pins back in. If you caught that, good eye.